Are you done being stuck with your pornography addiction? I'm going to answer for you how to get rid of your pornography addiction. Is it possible to overcome a pornography addiction? If you're watching this, you may not think so. You may have tried and tried and tried. Now, my experience as a sex addiction therapist who's treated pornography addiction for over a decade is that somebody can overcome a pornography addiction, but oftentimes the way that it's approached actually feeds and fuels the problem. So it's important to understand what to actually address in order to get over your pornography addiction. The normal reaction to try to get rid of a porn addiction is to try to stop the behavior. When people sit on my couch, I say to them, "What does recovery mean to you?" And the answer that I get most is that I'm rid of the behavior. I'm not acting out anymore. The reality is that's not recovery. That's just stopping the behavior. If you're just focusing on the don't and you're focusing on stopping something, it's not very motivating. It doesn't work for the long run. It doesn't work to actually find healing. With my clients, we've stopped counting days of sobriety and focusing on how long it's been since they've acted out. We don't talk about those things. Now you might be thinking, but isn't it important? Isn't it important to be sober? Yeah, it's very important. But that's an outcome of real long-lasting treatment and recovery. What you need is real recovery, which is actually understanding who you really are. It's finding peace within yourself. Once you find that peace within yourself, the byproduct of that is living a sober life. On a lot of my videos, I talk about overcoming addiction, dealing with pornography, and all kinds of things. So if you want more videos like this, please remember to subscribe to my channel. There's more to the story than just sex. You might think you look at pornography because you get aroused, it's exciting, you started looking at pornography at a young age and you got used to that excitement, and so now you're hooked to it. Well, there's way more to the story. And I hope to illustrate to you what's at the core of it and why that's at the core of it. Sex is something that you're using now to medicate, to numb your life. But why are you using it? So let's break it down at the board here. Addiction is the outcome. It's the outcome of something much bigger that's going on. So I'm going to start from the center here. When you have trauma and the trauma says that you're not okay, that something's broken, and it feeds shame to you. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you have parents who neglect you. They're just not very emotionally connected. That's what's called little t trauma. Now that little t trauma will send a message to you that you're not worth it, that you're not lovable, and those messages turn into shame. Now as a child, instead of thinking there's something wrong with my parents, you actually think something more like this. My parents got it together. They're creating safety for me. We have to believe that as children. My parents are going to take care of me. It's not that they're broken, it's that I'm broken. And so you internalize that little t trauma. I'm broken. When you start to believe that you're broken, it leads to disconnection. You're not as vulnerable in your relationships. You're not as open. You're not as honest in your relationships. As you feel disconnection and you find pornography, that fills the gap. It feels really, really good because for a split second, everything's okay. You've sexualized your shame and everything feels right in that moment. So sex becomes addicting because you're searching for something. I've heard it said that addiction is somebody's attempt to find God. Addiction is somebody's attempt to feel love. So if addiction is somebody's attempt to feel love and you keep going back to pornography, then there's something broken way down here. There's some trauma that you've had that has created some beliefs about yourself that are driving this addiction. So if you're just focused on the addiction up here, and you're just focused on not doing the behavior anymore, then you're actually feeding the shame. Because when you just focus on that and you fail, you relapse, it drives home that you're broken and you're unlovable and you're not okay. When you deal with this trauma, when you face it, when you feel it, when you process it, when you act against the shame that it gives you, then you start to heal the core of the addiction. You start to live your life more in the light. You start to be an honest person. And once you're an honest person, you can't live in addiction anymore. The key to freedom from an addiction is honesty. It's about living a congruent life. And what I mean by that is living a life that's congruent with truth. When you're living a congruent life with truth, then you don't have a need to numb out. I'm thinking of a lot of the guys that I've worked with, and it's interesting because they try so hard to prove themselves, to be sober enough in order to be okay. But that never ever works. And it's the guys who face their shame, who start living in the light, who are honest, that get the relief. It's like weight off of their shoulders. They're not hunkered down anymore in this shame and this pain that's driving the addiction. And the way that they do that is by opening up, by being authentic, being honest, calling sponsors, talking to friends, praying, connecting as much as they possibly can so that they're out there and they're connected. Once you're honest, once you're connected, then you're free. It can be very difficult to be honest because if you're used to living a dishonest life, then you're used to manipulating people in order to feel okay about yourself. So to step out of that and to step into authenticity and honesty can be very uncomfortable. But if you stay in these ruts, you're going to stay addicted. You're going to keep acting out over and over again. The only way through is by practicing courage enough to be an honest person. Once you've dealt with the trauma, and by the way, you guys, there's all kinds of ways to deal with the trauma. You can do specific therapies that go straight at the trauma, like EMDR or internal family systems. You can do those therapies. You can also just practice courage, put yourself out there, process pain. There's all kinds of ways to deal with the trauma. Once you've dealt with that root cause, the trauma, then the next step is to change the inputs in your life. Change the friends that you have, change the hobbies that you have. You might even have to change your job. Shift your relationships so that you have inputs that support you in your recovery, not inputs that support your addiction. Through dealing with your trauma and dealing with your shame and working on your inputs, those things together create long-lasting recovery, and you can get rid of your porn addiction. If you've struggled with a porn addiction, then I'm sure you don't want your son to struggle with a porn addiction either. So check out my video, How to Talk to Your Son About Porn, and it will help you to not create the things that create addiction for him. Go check it out.